Have you ever heard the term MFA? It stands for Multi-Factor Authentication. Have you ever wondered how to implement MFA in your Salesforce org or how to roll out MFA in your org? In this video, Kelly Walker is discussing how to incorporate an extra level of security by implementing MFA in your Salesforce org to support you in your Salesforce learning journey. Welcome! It's Rachel and Jessica from 100 Days of Trailhead, the place where the tech community comes to learn Salesforce, learn tech, get inspired, have fun, and invest in ourselves. Whether you are brand new to learning Salesforce and starting from the beginning, or mid-career and skilling up for that new opportunity, we are your trail guides here to support you with an itinerary to help you get where you're going. You are in the right place. If you are new to our channel, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to click on the notification bell so you can be notified when we release a new video. In the description below, you can find links on everything we mention in this video, in addition to links we find helpful like books that have helped us and our friends along our tech and Salesforce journeys. To find other helpful Salesforce and tech content, visit our blog at 100daysoftrailhead.com. Kelly Walker is discussing MFA and how to incorporate this extra level of security in your org. Kelly is a product adoption senior manager at Salesforce, focusing on driving adoption of multi-factor authentication and Lightning experience. Outside of teaching, training, and presenting to customers, she works closely with the Lightning's Champion program, providing customers passionate about Lightning opportunities to evangelize the power of the platform. Your quest, should you choose to take it, is to journey with us through the adventure of learning MFA. Your quest begins now.
Kelly is a senior adoption consultant at Salesforce, focusing on driving adoption of multi-factor authentication and Lightning experience. Outside of teaching, training, and presenting to customers, she works closely with the Lightning Champions program, providing customers passionate about Lightning opportunities to evangelize the power of the platform. And without further ado, our speaker is Kelly Walker.
Well, thank you all. I'm humbled by that introduction, apart from the bio that I wrote. But yeah, I really enjoyed helping with 100 days of automation. And really it was just to kind of break down the barriers of getting people in and starting to automate processes. I've worked with, I can't even tell you how many customers I've worked with as it came to Lightning implementation, and a lot of times the conversation did go to automation, and you know, I'd say, oh yeah, that sounds like a process could take care of that, and even process was intimidating. So I figured there was something that maybe I could help, and so that's how that track came to be. But at one point too, I thought my adoption role was going to shift towards automation, but it didn't. It shifted more towards security. And so that's, you know, what I want to talk through today. So I'll share my screen and let me know if you can see it.
We can see it.
Okay. And also, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna just stop my video so you don't see me looking at my notes every now and then. But as I mentioned, really it's a focus that has shifted away from Lightning experience as my primary role and moved to multi-factor authentication. And so we're just really trying to get the word out about the importance of securing your org, especially at this time when everyone's working from home or working remotely, maybe logging into a network that isn't secure, and so how we can make the most of it for our users. So with that, just to remind you, we are a publicly traded company, so we ask that you make any purchasing decisions based on what's readily and currently available within the application. It really won't cover any forward-looking features or functionality here, but we just have to remind you. And then just a few things to get through today. If you've never heard of multi-factor authentication or you're not using it, talking about why it's important, what those solutions are for Salesforce, how to roll it out, just to really show you how quickly it can be done through a demo, and then wrap up in any questions that you may have. So as you, I'm sure, are well aware of, Salesforce is here to really keep your data confidential and really secure the integrity and the availability of it, because we know that it's vital to our customers, and so we take the protection of that very seriously. And as I mentioned, we're all working remotely now, potential growth of security threats. We want to make sure that our customers understand that it's essential to implement stronger measures of account access security so that you're protecting your data, your customers' data, and ultimately your business. Oh, sorry. I don't know why that went like that. But as we work to build security into everything we do, we really are only half the story. So the security onus really is shared between you, our customers, and Salesforce. And so as a steward of your business's security, you play a critical role in safeguarding your data and your customers' data. And with your Salesforce data being as valuable as it is, it could be a target of what we refer to as bad actors. So individuals trying to get in and get that data. So as a key part of your security strategy, really consider safeguarding access to your Salesforce user accounts. And how do we do that? Well, if the slide would move. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay, we do that with multi-factor authentication. And as we state here, enabling MFA really is the easiest, most effective action that you can take to secure your users' accounts. We'll talk about how that plays in with SSO in just a minute or so here. But I just want to point out that there's a lot of places in the application today where we still refer to it as two-factor authentication or 2FA. They really are synonymous for our purposes, but outside of Salesforce, two-factor authentication really is that where two factors are required. Multi-factor could potentially require more than just two. But for our purposes, again, it is synonymous, multi-factor and two-factor. All right, so MFA really is that extra layer of security for your login process, requiring users to verify their identity with two or more pieces of evidence, what we refer to as factors, really to prove that they are who they say they are. So one factor is something that the user knows, such as their username and password combination, and other factors are something that the user has. So like a code from an authentication app on a mobile device, or maybe it's tangible YubiKey where they're factoring in with their thumbprint. What you need to know is that for MFA purposes inside of Salesforce, Salesforce supports only strong verification methods, and we'll get into kind of what that means. If you think about two-factor authentication or MFA outside of Salesforce, chances are you are utilizing it and maybe not really realizing it with regards to logging into a credit card app or a banking app. Maybe you're sent a text just to input a code before you can complete the login process. Maybe if you utilize an ATM, that is MFA. That is something that you know, your PIN, and something that you have, your card. So it really is no different as we look to securing our Salesforce org with MFA. But as I mentioned, only strong factors are allowed, and we'll talk about what that means in just 1 minute. So using username and password alone really does not provide sufficient protection, because as I mentioned before, it's really easy for those bad actors or individuals who want to gain access to your data. It's easy for them to exploit weak or reuse passwords through common types of attacks like phishing and credential stuffing, some of the others that you'll see here on the right-hand side. And phishing, whether you've seen it in action or not, is one of the most successful attack vectors and was one of the most in 2019. So we really want to prevent against that when it comes to our Salesforce data. Phishing is something like when an attacker will send an email that looks like it's from a company that the user is familiar with and asks for a user's credentials through a website that looks credible. And then just like that, they have your username and password. So we want to make sure that we're eliminating that potential threat for our users and for our org. MFA protects against these types of attacks because it ties user access to these multiple and different types of authentication factors, really making it difficult for threats like phishing attacks to succeed. But as I mentioned, we would talk about SSO, strong factors, and I also want to just touch on device activation. So if you are currently using the authentication method that is device activation, that is, and if you're not, what device activation is it's requiring a user to use a verification method as a second factor when accessing Salesforce from an unrecognized browser or application. So when a user logs in from an unrecognized browser or application, Salesforce challenges the user to verify their identity. While device activation provides protection, it has some limitations because, one, it doesn't apply to every login, and users can use email or SMS as a second verification method, but those are not considered strong verification methods. Device activation is sometimes confused with MFA because it requires a second factor, but the significant difference really is that MFA requires a user second factor to be a strong verification method, and users must provide the method every time they log in. So just some distinguishing factors there. And then with SSO, if you're using SSO, that's great. As you see, it's recommended that you implement SSO with MFA. But SSO really is a great way to improve your user's login experience, reducing some of the risks as well that may be associated with weak or reused passwords. If your users are regularly accessing multiple different apps in the course of their day, we strongly suggest that you utilize what's referred to as an identity provider to further secure Salesforce and your other applications. And with a well-implemented SSO strategy, you can reduce password-related risks, improve authentication processes, and make it easier for your users really to log into those frequently used applications. But considering that passwords are commonly targeted by those bad actors, there's still a chance that user accounts could be compromised if an SSO implementation relies on user credentials alone. So that's why we say if you have an SSO solution, we strongly recommend that you enable MFA on your identity provider as an additional safeguard. So it doesn't have to be necessarily on Salesforce at that point, but we would recommend something for the identity provider. Okay, so let's get into those different kind of verification methods and second factors and what we mean by a strong authentication factor. So for MFA, Salesforce supports strong verification methods only, and that is something that a user has in his or her possession. So depending on the Salesforce product that you're using, we support these different types of factors or verification methods. We have the Salesforce Authenticator mobile app, which I'll dive into just a little bit more. A third-party time-based one-time password authenticator app. So if you're using something like Google Authenticator or Microsoft or Authy, and then something that's more physical, like a physical security key, YubiKey. You've maybe heard it referred to as that's where you're putting a thumbprint or a fingerprint on a security key that plugs into your USB. We also support Google's Titan security key. And again, those are factors or methods that you can use to verify your identity that you also have in your possession. Now, we don't allow email or SMS text messages as a verification method because we don't consider those strong. Those email credentials could be compromised, text messages could be intercepted. So we want to make it a lot harder for anyone with ill intent to get control of that second factor that you are utilizing to verify your identity. And we believe it's a lot harder for those individuals to gain access of an actual mobile device or physical security key than it is to infiltrate that email account or hack a cell phone number. Now, these are the clouds that support MFA today and products as well. So you'll see that not everything is listed. We are working hard to develop MFA functionality for all other Salesforce products, and we'll make sure, that we'll be providing updates and resources as MFA becomes available for additional products. So don't worry if you don't see your product up there. We are working hard to bring MFA to you. Now, how to roll out MFA, just like anything else new for your users, there is a change management process to it, and this is our recommended path to MFA. So really just getting ready. If you're not utilizing MFA today, hopefully you have a good understanding after this conversation around what it is and why it's important, so that you can take it back to your team and start to drive forward into a rollout for your users. And then a thorough management plan to make sure that your users are supported, making sure if they forgot their mobile device at home, or they lost their mobile device, or they lost their security key, that you have the appropriate support to make sure that they get unlocked quickly and continue on with what they're doing. This is definitely not something that we want to delay or an obstacle that we want to put in place for them to gain access to Salesforce. We just want to make sure that we're securing it from those bad actors. One other thing that I want to just talk about here is really taking an inventory of your users. So kind of in that get ready stage where I'll focus here for this conversation. If you have not looked at your users in a while, this might be a great time to go back and see what different permission sets are assigned to users, or what different profiles are assigned. I've worked with customers in the past where everyone's a system admin, as I'm sure you've heard that horror story before as well. We want to make sure that we're starting to apply the rule of least privilege. We even just came out with that new profile with the summer release, making sure that your users have the permissions, the CRUD, the field level security, whatever it is, to do their job, and really not much past that. So taking that inventory can be a great first step to understand who your most privileged users are. Chances are they are going to be at greater risk of attack from bad actors because they do have such free access to the data in your org. So start to look at your users, scale back on permissions where you can, and then look to those individuals with the most permissions really to apply MFA sooner rather than later. So when we go live with MFA, there's really two parts to it. So there's an admin portion, and then your users are going to have to do a portion as well. So on the admin side, it really is just creating a permission set with the two-factor authentication for user interface logins, user permission, and then assign that permission set to your users. You'll see that it's a little bit more robust in terms of what your users need to do, but it's not that much more difficult. You're obtaining a verification method, so either you're downloading or installing an authentication app, whether that be the Salesforce Authentication app or another one like Google or Microsoft, or you're receiving a security key from your admin, understanding how to use it. And then once the permission set has been assigned to you, connecting the method to your Salesforce account, And then every time after, when you log in, entering your username and password, and then verifying you are who you say you are with that registered method. Now, I mentioned a few different methods or factors that you could use before. One thing to note is that your users could have a mix of them. So working with some service agents, they can't have their cell phone with them. So an authentication app on a mobile device probably is not going to be a good verification method for them. So making sure that they have a tangible security key, but just thinking about what works best for your users and giving them the appropriate method. It doesn't have to be the same for all users. And one user could potentially have a few different methods if you prefer that route as well. Okay, so I really just want to show you how easy it is to turn on MFA for your users. What you need if you were to do this in your own instance, Salesforce org, admin permissions. And if you go the authentication app route, a mobile device, and then the authentication app, we'll use Salesforce Authenticator for the demo. What we're going to do is just create that permission set, assign it to our users, and then register the Salesforce Authenticator for our users to log in. If you've never seen the Salesforce Authenticator before, it is fast, frictionless, and free. So something that you might want to consider in your implementation of multi-factor authentication. Within this mobile app, you'll see whenever you log in, who's trying to log in, so the username, where they're trying to log into, the service, what device they're trying to log in from. And then we have some options around whether or not we always approve from a specific location. That's something that you can determine if that's right for your users or not. If your users are always in the same spot, it might just make it that much easier for them, and also provide that second factor of authentication, which makes them more secure. And then from there, they can approve or deny. And if they were to deny, obviously access would also be denied. Okay, so with that, I just recorded a video just because, as we know, demos often can go wrong. So with this, I'll just quickly show you how to create a permission set. I'm sure most everyone here has done so. So within the permission set, this is going to be a system permission. So once we create the new permission here, we'll head down to system permissions. And within that, again, it's still called two-factor authentication. So just keep that in mind. We are working hard to bring multi-factor nomenclature to everything that we do. So just hang tight as we still have things labeled as two-factor. We just want to make sure it's for user interface logins. We also have that with API logins, something to take note. And then, as with any permission set that you create, you need to assign it to your users. So for the user that I'm using in this demo org, I'll just go ahead and manage the assignments and assign it to me. One thing that I'll say while we're working here is there's also the ability to manage two-factor authentication. And so if you want to delegate any of these responsibilities, you can do so through that additional permission set. So I've just logged out and I'm ready to log back in. And as I do, you'll see my mobile device on the right hand of the screen, which has kind of just been sitting there. We're now going to go in and open the Authenticator app and add a new account. So from that, I'll receive a 2-word phrase, which I'll enter onto my desktop, more or less connecting the two within this. And I can see the username and the service. It's what I expect, so I can go ahead and connect. Okay, so just like that, an account was added to my Salesforce Authenticator app. I'm now logged in. Just one more step, I'll log back out and log back in, and you'll see it really is a push notification for your users, so that makes it just that much easier when they're trying to log in after they've registered their device. It really is much more streamlined. Like I said, it really does not take much effort to log in with that second verification method. And there it is. The username makes sense, the service, and the device that I'm logging in from. I have not enabled location services, so that's why it's not checked. I'll go ahead and approve it, and I'll be logged in. The last thing that I'll say is Lightning Login will come up for you or your users. That is one way in which really you're just sent a push notification to the Authenticator app. Your users don't even have to enter their username and password. They just basically go to log in. It sends a push notification to Salesforce Authenticator, and within that step, they are their username, password, and really that second factor are all included in the same acceptance. So if you want to improve your login even further, you might want to also explore Lightning Login. So that is the demo. Really, if you are looking for additional resources, we have a lot of great resources out there. Again, we're in the process of updating everything from a 2FA naming to more MFA. We're also working to include the adoption path into everything, just so that you feel supported in the 3 phases that we've identified, especially as it comes to rolling it out to your users and supporting and managing after the fact, so that you can understand how successful it is, understand maybe through your user feedback how cumbersome or not it is, and work to provide a seamless login process for them from there. Again, really focusing on enhanced security, as there are people out there trying to gain access to your Salesforce data, and we want to make sure you're extra secure. And so here are the resources that you can look to, especially the group in the Trailblazer community. You can join that MFA discussion with experts like myself, but more so the security team, who's very security minded, not just on MFA, but everything else like Shield and whatnot that you may deploy to make your users and your data more secure. The last thing that I'll say, because I just remembered that I forgot it, was that when you're using your mobile device, should something happen and someone gain access to it, unintended access, of course, make sure that you also have a biometric or some sort of code to open it. Again, that just makes it more secure, so that if someone were trying to gain access and they had access to your phone, we just want to stop them with that additional layer of security. And if you're interested in ever giving us feedback around any of the products, not just MFA, we have a user research program, which you can access with this QR code or through this link below. And really, as the different areas that you're interested in are looking for some feedback, we'll reach out to you. And as you'll see, you'll receive a gift card in appreciation for your time. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Sometimes I have to go back to the product team to understand some of the greater specifics around security, but definitely more than happy to take some questions.
Who has questions?
I have a question. What happens if a user loses their mobile device?
Yeah, so you can work to disconnect that from their mobile device if that's what you want to do. Or within the Authenticator, what we didn't show is that there's the ability to back up accounts. And so then if they were to get a new mobile device, they would just restore from a backup once they install the Authenticator on their new mobile device. And then there's also the ability for you or a delegated individual to give them one-time pass codes so that they could still gain access if they're kind of in the transition of one mobile device to the next.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you again for letting me come and speak on MFA. I know security isn't as sexy as lightning or automation, but it's a big push for us this year. So we just want to kind of start getting the word out about what MFA is and really start there. Like I said, I know there's a lot more that can go hand in hand with MFA or security in general, but at the very basic, we just want to make sure everyone understands this is available, it's easy to implement, and it's something you should consider.
So I have a question for you, and you may or may not have the answer, but do you have any best practices for how to incorporate SSO and multi-factor together?
Yeah, it really is on that identity provider. And I say that because your users probably will not want to have to provide a second factor or method after trying to log in to Salesforce from the SSO that you're utilizing. So if you put it on the identity provider, basically, as they move around between apps, that factor or their verification, their identity has already been verified. If you put it at the app level, it could cause some confusion or frustration. Yeah, the other thing that came up recently was if you're logging in as your users and you have MFA, it's still going to send them the request. So either you work with them to get that code or to have them accept, or you issue a one-time pass code for yourself. So I know that comes up pretty often that we're logging in as our users. So just one more thing to consider and to test thoroughly, before you implement it for your users.
Ooh, that actually reminds me of something else that's a good heads up. When you do make a sandbox, a lot of times you'll take over a user's account to test things out, and it does. For users, it changes their email to .invalid, but it keeps that mobile number, so you can very easily launch a verification text to users just when you're testing in a sandbox. So before you pick your users, or just write a little script or have somebody do that to clean all of the user phone numbers before you start.
Kelly, we are so grateful to you for today.
Yes.
We're grateful
Thanks for having me.
For 100 Days of Automation. We're grateful to you for all the stuff that you've done for 100 Days of Trailhead. We're grateful to you for being just so awesome and so cool and a wonderful friend and support to us. Everybody, Kelly Walker!
And with that, we're at the end. Do you plan on adding MFA to your org? What is your favorite tip from this video? If you've added MFA to your org already, do you have a tip that you would like to share? Comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it up to this point, we want to take an opportunity to say thank you. Since you've stayed with us, here's a bonus. In the Winter 21 release, you have access to the Multi-Factor Authentication Assistant, your hub for all the recommended steps, tools, and resources to roll out MFA to your users. The assistant guides you through the entire process, from evaluating your requirements and planning the project to launching MFA and supporting users' post-rollout needs. Thank you for spending time with us. Make sure you like this video. It helps a lot. Click subscribe and on the notification bell so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on Instagram, Twitter, and on our website at 100daysoftrailhead.com, all of which are listed below. Thank you for learning with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.